Um, I don't know. I haven't checked my Twitter account. Joe's
4 days away.
Joe, I do know. Yeah, Joe's starting, and King will piggyback with him.
The choice there lines up for.
I wouldn't read any too much into it. You guys can have fun with it all you want, but Joe is pitching the start of the first spring training game, and how we go from there, we'll take it from there.
Generally, early on, we see someone, like a Groom or a guy like a Vasquez, a guy competing to make it, not one of the staff aces. But nothing to read in.
You can, not from my perspective. Joe just happens to be the guy that lines up to pitch the first game based on his live schedule and his off season.
Is that?
And we have a shorter spring training, so.
That was going to be my next question. How does that impact his build-up, like given that?
Yeah, I think you recognize that we're in a. I don't know if there's traditional spring training anymore, but there hasn't been. But this is yet another non-traditional where we go and compete. So it really just landed on his day to go pitch, and that's what he'll do. It'll be great.
How given that his season did end early, to injury last season, and he seems to have had a very productive offseason, like the fact that he is ready to go right now, he pitched yesterday live, like what is that comfort level with the fact that he's kind of moved past that?
I mean, actions speak louder than words. I mean, the good news is we've been able to say some really positive things about his offseason, but most importantly, he's been able to live through a really good rehab process where I give him a lot of credit of taking it very seriously, as you would expect from Joe and all our players, quite frankly. But, he's had a very productive all season, and he's healthy, he's throwing his lives, feels great, and he's going to pitch on Thursday. It's fantastic.
You said you won't have a rubber stamp closer, but how does Robert Suarez figure into the mix?
I mean, clearly he's right there, right? I mean, this guy is, A, done it, B, has the stuff to do it, has the demeanor to do it. I know we like to declare for what that might look like, but obviously Robert Suarez has got a legitimate chance of being a lot of the back end of our games.
You had a guy last year that had finite rules about how he was used. This year you're going to mix and match. Is there an attractiveness to having guys that you can use whenever you want?
Yeah, that's absolutely. When guys are open and available to different, opportunities towards in any way. I mean, Bogey's a great example. I can move to second base. Pitchers that are willing to pitch when the need arises. That team first mentality is absolutely huge. The one thing about bullpens I was talking to Palm about the other day is, they're not in a silo, and that's the thing that it's fine. Like, great, everybody's available. Then Suarez maybe has the ninth, and we can back up from there. But there'll be days where guys have gone back to back, and they need an extra day. Maybe it's early in the year, middle of the season, whatever. That the bullpen fluidity literally changes every day, about who's available. So, but yeah, just for Robert Suarez, this is a guy that's got all the things I've already alluded to that works perfectly at the end of a game.
Game on the line in the seventh inning, or are you a guy that will hey, there's a matchup there, I'm going to use Robert right here?
I wouldn't rule it out. I think you can get in. The good news about our club and bullpens also is if you always have to bring one or two guys for one or two situations, it doesn't really add up to a really, strong, consistent bullpen, and so, yes, in certain situations we can do that. Obviously the playoffs can be a different scenario, versus 162 games. But ultimately, good pitching staffs and good bullpens have deep arms, and really good bullpens have those guys, which I'm feeling comfortable that we'll have. They have bullpens that when you're down that run or two in the sixth or seventh, you don't feel like you have to bring in that guy that usually brings it home. You can put another guy that can hold it there and allow our team to come back. One of the things that we talk about teams being able to come back late in games, yeah, that statistic's important. We weren't great at it last year, but also it's also representative of having a bullpen that allows you to hold that lead, that deficit there, so you can come back, as opposed to allowing the other team to extend it. And the other part of that is if you have a group of 8, let's say, to start our year in a bullpen, and you have those guys 5 through 8 that are very strong, that keeps 1 through 4 fresh. You don't feel like you've got to bump them up to an earlier situation, and that's where you have a consistent, strong bullpen and team. But there are circumstances where you look up and say, okay, that's the spot for this guy, and if we've got that strong guy to come back behind him, then that's his best bolt. To use him there, absolutely, that makes sense. But do recognize that 7th, a lot of times wraps around to that 9th. So it's more like an 8th and 9th interchangeable. But I can't rule out the end of the 7th to grab the 8th and then go from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, how about the Darvish now? He's gonna pitch a live BPR game.
Yes, everybody mostly will pitch another live batting practice. And Darvish has one more live batting practice.
Maybe tomorrow.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, he pitched 2 days ago.
Yeah,
so
I think it's a possibility.
And then you said that Joe's gonna pitch the first game, and how about the Darvish is gonna pitch the game?
We'll see. We'll keep you guys waiting, anticipating. But yeah, we'll let you know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
What's that look for Tucupita, Marcano?
As far as
The knee.
yeah, you know what? He's getting better. He's making progress. But he's clearly going to be another week or two to start to ramp up baseball activity. So it's really kind of early to give you a timeline on when he gets back to competition relative to playing in a game. He's got some baseball progression ahead of him.
A lot of stuff on the bullpen philosophy, which I appreciate.
Yep.
The catching philosophy, I'd like to ask you
Okay.
about.
Yeah, sure.
Kind of how you view. I mean, you have 2 guys that have done it. Camposano did it toward the end of last season. Like, how do you view the balance of keeping guys fresh behind the plate and getting the most production out of them while still kind of maximizing what they do?
Yeah, it's a good one. I had the real pleasure of managing Yachty, and it wasn't a literal fight, but it could have turned into one. Some days with his desire to play and his ability to play and lead. So yeah, I mean, clearly I've done that before too. I managed the catching situation. Campy's made strides. Higgy's, we're really excited to have him. We've got Sully. It's still a competition. Pawicki's in camp. But yeah, I mean, we're just going to allow spring to develop, and but we have some ideas about what that can look like. But we haven't played our first spring game, and new to a couple guys that are coming into camp. So we'll take it as it goes. But I'm pretty sure we'll get comfortable with the rhythm of our catchers. The good news is we got guys that we like and we feel confident in.
And safe to say, no one's going to get the Yachty treatment of like 140 or whatever.
I don't know if anybody wants the Yachty treatment, but yeah, I think that's very safe to say. Yes.
Kind of along those lines with position players and, just sort of balancing rest and production and all that. Obviously, with some star players, it's a little bit different than some places.
As far as spring training scheduling goes.
And into the regular season.
Oh, in the regular season. Well, spring training, I'll partner with. I'm going to sit down with some guys today. Manny's an exception not only in his experiences, which we're going to lean on, but he's making sure his progression makes sense. I know it's a little off your question, but no, from a spring training standpoint, the guys that have they know what it takes for them to get ready. How many at bats they've had, how many they need, when they want to go back to back, when they want to go, get that extra at bat. So there's some art and conversation with that. The younger players, I mean, somebody's got to play in the game, so we clearly have open competition for our camp, so they're going to get their opportunities to perform and see what they can do. And then during the season, listen, our guys like to play. They like to get on the field, and I could get into this for the next 45 minutes, but we got to start our workout. But there's a mindset about playing every day. I think the most important thing about guys being able to play every day is how we take care of them and themselves away from the field. What that looks like from a efficiency of work before the game, and being intentional about that. Because, yeah, the game has its demands, but let's say, for example, the game goes extra innings, the guy's on base, 6 times, and has a real aggressive day. Well, the next day we may say, hey man, just show up, get some swings in the cage, and give us your best bolt in the game. We may have already had scheduled early work or infield, and so it's fluid in that regard. And we listen to a lot of different people, obviously the player, the training staff, and just take awareness of that. But it's really as much as how we take care of ourselves with them away from the competition and how we prepare for them for the game so they're fresh, because what's the most important thing is when that bell rings first pitch and they're ready to rock. As far as days off go, it's really interesting. I won't get into the specifics of the names, at least it's interesting to me, so I'll say it. May not be of any interest to anybody here, which is, that's fine. But what's interesting to me is, having done this for a while, is you'll sit down with a veteran player and say, hey, what's your season look like? You've played 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, 18 years. Now that you have these experiences, what does a day off look like? A, no days off. B, I'll take a day off in front of a day off or in the back end of a day off. C, I'd never want to take 2 days off. D, I'm not ducking anybody, but I don't see this guy great. I don't have my competitive spirit says I want him, but man, I don't pick up the ball on this guy. That's fantastic. We can fire somebody else in there, give you a blow, and go from there. And then the other parts of the day off is it a full day off? Like how many of us have had days off and then somebody calls you on your day off to do something, and you're like, I was just going to go fish and hang out with my family or play pickleball or whatever we do and that we enjoy. And then I got the call. Was it really a day off? So my point of that is like, is it a full day off? Are you available to take that at bat in the 8th? That's part of my decision. We can talk about it. So there's a lot of different ways we look at days off, and so, if we're smart about how we do it, we have the ability to keep guys fresh, especially as the season gets towards the end.